Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the District with State Senator Suzanne Weber. I am joined, as always, with our illustrious senator, Suzanne. How are you?
I am just fine. The sun is shining. I got my garden watered this morning, even though it isn't growing as fast as I want it to. But everything is good. I'm keeping up my meeting schedule because even though this is the interim, where we're not in Salem necessarily,
Well,
on the floor in committees every day, I'm still working because not only do I have all of the task forces that I'm on that are meeting on a regular basis, because most of them need to have their reports completed by September. I'm also working on constituent issues and issues within the community. So there's a lot going on. It does not stop just because we're not in Salem.
no, it doesn't. And in fact, here in a few weeks, we'll be meeting for our big legislative rundown. We have the long session coming up, and during the long session, you're able to introduce pretty much as many bills as you want before the session starts.
Right.
After the session starts, I think you're limited to 5.
Yes.
But before the session starts, you can file as many bills as you want. And so
Yes.
we have a list that we affectionately call the squirrel cage of all of the ideas and thoughts and concepts that we think might be able to come forward for this next year. And
Right, because we've been spending months talking to people and collecting these ideas.
Right, just like when you had those office hours. That's one of those great things about those office hours. You could actually sit down and talk to somebody for 30 minutes about the idea that they have. And I know that happened a number of times. But that's a good time to remind folks that if you're listening to this and you've got an idea that you think would be a good bill, I can't promise you that we're going to do anything with it. But a lot of the legislation that we've worked on and that a lot of the other legislators have worked on have come from constituents. So if you've got an idea that you think is something that the legislature ought to consider, shoot us an email, send us a message on Facebook, something like that. Let us know.
Yes, we're willing to listen.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of things, a lot of laws that we have that are on the books from a long time ago that may be impacting you, that may need tweaking. And that is what happens now too. Yesterday, I had the honor of addressing the Oregon State Convention of the Grange. They were in Tillamook for their convention, and when I got done speaking, then they were going over legislative concepts and positions that they hold as a part of their organization. And it was really interesting to hear that some of those have been on their books. There was one from 1977 that they were still debating over.
Wow.
But, and a lot of things have happened while they're going over their policy and their concepts in the legislature in that time. And so they're going over things and they're checking them out. And it was really, really interesting to hear that, the number of people that had definite ideas and concepts on this. Yeah. And they weren't all Republicans. They weren't all Democrats, but they all seem to have a real good grasp of common sense as to what's happening.
I think that one thing that's important for folks who want something to pass, and we've talked about this before, and they want to bring you a concept, it is important to remember that we have to work with the legislature that we have, not the legislature that we want to have.
Right.
Right. So the reality is that both houses of the legislature are run by Democrats. Most of the Democrats in the legislature tend to be progressive Democrats, not like middle of the road Democrats. The governor is a progressive Democrat. So you have to realize that any sort of policy that we get through we have to make sure that it actually could get signed. And actually, that means there's going to have to be some give and take. And so if you're just a red meat Republican who wants to get a red meat issue through, it's just not going to happen. I mean, Senator might totally agree with you, might think that's absolutely what we should do. But it does not get you to those important numbers, which are 31, 16, and 1. 31 votes in the House, 16 votes in the Senate, and 1 governor willing to sign. So good thing to remember every once in a while.
Yes. And another thing that people don't take into consideration is that you may have a bill that you think is absolutely fantastic, and you submit that concept and it gets written into a bill. It may never get off of the president's or the speaker's desk because it may not appeal to them or be assigned to a committee. And if it doesn't get assigned to a committee, it's dead.
That is correct. And, we do have every once in a while what are called messaging bills. A lot of people introduce a bill that they think should be law. And then you can say, I introduced a bill. And that's fine. You can say you introduced a bill, and you did. You just never saw the light of day. Never got a hearing, nothing. So being able to say, I introduced a bill, well, that doesn't really mean much all the time.
Right. It doesn't.
If you got a bill passed, now we're talking, because that takes work. Well, there's a couple of things we want to talk about here this go around, and things that have happened over the last week or so, honestly. One of them is IP17.
Yes.
Which is an initiative petition. So, which generally, if it collects enough signatures, will become a ballot measure, and it'll have its own ballot measure.
Right.
Anybody can file an initiative petition. But IP17 actually turned in a large number of signatures, and if those signatures are validated, make sure they're actually registered voters in the state of Oregon, it could end up on the ballot.
It could.
Tell us a little bit about what IP17 is.
Well, IP17 is an additional tax on big business. If a business has $25 million in sales over a year's time, then they will have a percentage of tax that they will need to be paying.
3%.
The idea is that from this tax, each Oregonian that has lived in the state for a period of 200 days will receive about $750 a year in a check. Now, that has been part of a big discussion for the last few weeks as to whether or not this was actually going to get enough signatures. But it seems to have gained those signatures. There was an article in the Oregonian on Wednesday concerning it and the effort. The thing that is so disconcerting about all of this, I just have to hit this, is Measure 110 was brought to Oregon as an experiment from the East Coast. IP17 is being brought to Oregon by a large group of folks from California. They are bringing the money to collect the signatures and to go forward if it is validated, on the ballot, to make sure it passes. But they don't have that in California. We are their experiment to see if something like this could pass because of the liberal nature of the people that live in our state, especially up and down the I-5 corridor. Now, $750 may sound like a really good deal, but it's once a year. And in this day and age, with inflation and costs and housing as it is, what exactly is $750 going to do for you that will in turn penalize the big business that is bringing the wages and the economic security to this state. It doesn't make sense. It just absolutely, to penalize business by adding another tax on them so that they can give every Oregonian $750.
And let's take a minute, and you use the phrase big business, and I'd push back a little bit about that. $25 million sounds like a lot of money. And it is a lot of money. I get that. You know, the average revenue of a car dealership? What's your average car dealership? $74 million. That's because it isn't how much money that they profit. That's not what this is. This is a gross receipts tax.
It's a gross receipts tax.
If you bring in $74 million, but you spend $79 million, you actually lose $5 million, you are still taxed on $74 million.
Yes.
And yeah, the little guy down the street, he's going to get his $750 a year. And that's just great. You know who else is going to get $750 a year? Phil Knight. Yes. There's no means test to this.
No, there isn't.
It doesn't matter if you're making $50,000 a year, $5,000 a year, $50 million a year, you get your $750. So when you have these policies that, well, it just sounds like somebody's making 25 million bucks. Well, gosh, they could pay all the taxes in the world. But those 25 million bucks are those kind of medium range businesses.
Well, I think it's insulting to the whole business community in Oregon. I mean, we've already got the CAT tax, corporate activity tax for schools and education, which is reaping, millions of dollars every year. And that's a glorified sales tax. Well, you know what's going to happen when we have IP17? We're also going to have a glorified sales tax. And Oregon has been historically anti-sales tax.
Yeah.
But here we are. We're going to have two of them now.
It's really unbelievable. It really is unbelievable that this Oregonians should be insulted by this. This is literally California coming to say, well, we don't want to try this in California because, gosh, we wouldn't want to ruin our state anymore. Let's go up and ruin Oregon. Because if Oregon gets ruined, then we'll know we won't want to try this in California.
Yes, exactly.
Oregonians are being treated as lab rats.
Yes, they are. That's exactly it.
And it was the same way with Measure 110. You hit it in the nail on the head. Same way with Measure 110. And what did that experiment do? It ruined our cities.
Yes.
It destroyed our communities. It destroyed our businesses. It killed people.
And healthcare. Look at what it did to healthcare and law enforcement.
Yeah. Totally depleted.
Yes.
It is unconscionable that Oregonians would stand for this. Right. So I hope that this, if it does actually go to the ballot, that it gets just.
If you're listening and you're concerned about this, I think you should really look up how much these California millionaires have put into this. It's, I wish I would have gotten the figures here so that I could share them, but it's ridiculous. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they are working to change our state and how it is.
It's just stunning.
I know. Words can't even describe.
It really is infuriating.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, be on the lookout for that, everybody. If you hear about IP17, we'll let you know what that becomes. If it gets a ballot, it will need to have a ballot measure number. We will certainly make sure you know what that is.
Yes, and I really want to caution people again. Our ability to sign petitions is a wonderful right. But you know what? you need to read all the way to the bottom of the page.
Yeah. You are 100%.
There's nothing wrong with saying, no, I don't sign those until I know what exactly is happening and what are going to be the consequences. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be intimidated by the people in the parking lot at Safeway who want you to put your name on the line.
Right. And I think it really isn't particularly on that. The people who are asking to sign these, sometimes they're volunteers, but a lot of the time, most of the time, these are paid.
They're paid people.
Gatherers. And God bless them. They're mercenaries. I've run ballot measures before. I've fought against ballot measures before. They are paid mercenaries. They know just enough about the ballot measure to give you kind of an idea of about what it's about. And a lot of times, they'll kind of make things up as they go along. They do not take what a ballot measure, a circulator says as enough reason to sign a petition. Do not do it. Find out what it's about.
Yes.
Look for the IP number on the you look at it for the IP number and go look it up yourself. And then you can go back and you can, if there's probably a campaign, if there's a paid signature gatherers, there's a campaign. If you think it's a good idea, you can contact them and you can sign. Do that. Never, unless you know about the campaign, never, ever, ever, ever sign one of these things, no matter how good it might sound. Never sign them at the store.
You're getting one sound bite. You're getting 30 to 45 seconds of a sound bite. And you don't need to make a decision in that 30 to 45 second sound bite that is something that could completely change your world.
Yep. Yeah. And if you think that this won't change Oregon, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Well, and it also opens up the gate for other people who want to experiment on other, off the chart ideas to come in here and know that we are vulnerable.
And if we start saying no to these things, they're going to stop trying.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's relatively easy to get on the ballot in Oregon, because Oregon is a fairly left of center state, usually left-leaning organizations view Oregon as a perfect petri dish.
Yes, they do.
And if they get slapped down enough, they're going to stop trying.
Yes.
But if we keep passing these things, we keep falling for it, well, then what happens to us, we deserve, I guess. I mean, it's just, we have to wise up. And it's all on us. It's on us to make sure that we stop this individually.
Right.
And we'll talk to our friends. Hey, did you hear about IP17, what that is? You hear what it really does? Talk to our friends about what these things are.
Yes.
So.
Okay, on another note.
Yeah, let's talk about the
we had the Joint Transportation Roadshow here. Initially it wasn't going to come to Northwest Oregon, but they reconsidered. Sometimes things happen and you reconsider these things. And they decided to come to Tillamook, which was wonderful for us because we have so many issues. We have 30, we have 26, we have 6, we have 131, we have 22, we have 101, we have 53. We have all of these highways that if you're from the Valley or you're from Eastern Oregon, you don't necessarily know about what kind of challenges we have here, especially, that are economically based, that are safety based. And so they're coming here to listen to us. I think was a gift. And it was the senators and the representatives that are part of the Joint Transportation Committee. And so it consisted of a tour for about, the senators and the representatives and some other presenters and county commissioners of some of the different issues and areas that we have, culverts, road condition. We have a bridge that needs to be replaced at the top of Juno Hill. That if that bridge goes, and it's been there since 1937, we will have no connectivity to the north end of our county or beyond, because there's no road around it other than going all the way to Banks and taking Highway 4726 to get around. And so it would really cripple our area. So we had the opportunity to show and tell exactly what needs to happen. And a lot of them came over on Highway 6 and have been badgered by me to read the report that was made on Highway 6. And so being there, it gave them a new understanding of a lot of things. So following the tour, there was a roundtable discussion in which a lot of folks from the county and public works and trucking and farming, county commissioners, mayors, were in attendance to talk about and answer some specific questions that were asked by the chairs of the commission. And it was really interesting because it was a free discussion, and one of the big issues that's going to be coming out concerning ODOT and transportation is how we continue to fund it, especially with declining revenue from taxes relating to EVs. Our cars are more fuel efficient, so they're requiring less gas. And so, those that money is down. We have got more and more demands on our roads and our road conditions and safety that need to be paid for. And so, there were people that came forward with a lot of good ideas, along with pointing out the problems that we're facing. So that was a 2-hour discussion. And then there was a public part of this from about 4:30, 5 o'clock until 7 out at the port of Tillamook Bay. And I was really pleased. I would say there were between 50 and 60 people there, and they each had 2 minutes to be able to express their concerns. And if they had, more than the time allotted, they were encouraged to submit that testimony, which is something that I might say that if you have opinions and concerns regarding all of the issues that are our transportation issues in this area, you can submit your testimony through OLIS, the Oregon Legislative Information Service, to the Joint Transportation Committee, especially if you have ideas on funding going forward. I mean, they're probably going to need $1.8 billion to be able to continue going forward. With our crosswalks, that's about $1.8 billion that the crosswalks that are going to be handicapped accessible need to be redone throughout the state. We have bridge repairs, we have culvert repairs, we have road condition issues. Highway 6, we have hopefully some turnouts or some passing lanes that may be constructed. So there were all kinds of ideas and discussions on going forward so that we can actually finance our transportation system. Of course, the highway on the Rose Quarter came into consideration, but there wasn't a lot of discussion on that or the bridge, other than pointing out, there were some people that pointed out some issues that are really common sense that I hadn't heard come forward regarding the bridges. So tolling was also discussed, and tolling may not be at front and center in the discussions right now, but tolling is still a part of the discussion. And gas tax is still a part of the discussion. And how we levy taxes against our EVs.
Right.
Because they're not paying road tax because they're not using gasoline.
And this is a discussion that's a discussion that needs to be had beyond EVs, right? I mean, EVs pay zero gas taxes, none whatsoever. However, as we keep having these like high efficiency hybrids, like you can buy a hybrid that gets 70, 80 miles to the gallon. That if that becomes standard, and I think when people are looking, well, we're just going to go to EVs. I don't think that is realistic, but I think the idea of going to very high efficiency hybrids over the next few years is, and when it used to be your average car got 20 miles to the gallon or 50 or even less, and now you get like average car getting 30, 40, 50, 60. Gas tax revenue is going to drop dramatically. And but our infrastructure needs aren't going to go down. If anything, they're going to go up.
Right.
So what do we do? So
yes,
that's a conversation that has to keep being had.
Yes, and we've got to continue to look at the composition of the lines on the road and how they're affected by the rain in this area. They put those little beads in the paint and they put it on the road. Well, that washes off, and they're not necessarily that visible in the rain. So we've got to look at other ways that we can, stripe and put those fog lines out there so that people consider, night, rain, that needs to be taken into consideration for safety. One thing I need to say, though, is that as a result of myself and Representative Davity and Betsy Johnson and Doug Olson going to Salem to talk to ODFW about cell service. We will be getting a big tower about 22 miles up that should cover a lot of the area. So we will have cell service over a vast portion of Highway 6. And that'll probably take a year to happen. But, at least we are looking at the real possibility of having that service. Because that will save so much for safety, especially, when you have an accident up there. It takes, 40 minutes sometimes, depending on traffic.
That's a big deal. That is definitely a huge thing. I think one unintended consequence that gives me a little bit of stress driving over that. Right now, you have no one looking at their phones while they're driving because there is no cell service.
Right.
I'm curious how that will affect things.
Yes, because there are people that are very opposed to cell service on Highway 6 for that very reason, because the uncertainty of the roads, especially for tourists and people coming into the area, and to be able to have the cell service will make a difference probably to them.
Yeah, that's just a small concern of mine. It'll be interested to see how it plays out. Maybe it won't be a problem. Maybe I think that's just the first thing that went into my head. As dangerous as that road is, as windy as that road is, yeah.
Right, and we have serious condition issues between milepost 31 and 35. And if someone is busy talking on their phone, when they hit one of those bumps, they'll go airborne and off the edge.
Right. Well, whole lot coming up then. Oh, there's just a lot to do, and I know in the next session we'll be having that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And, another thing that we need to look at, which is totally unrelated to what we've been talking about, is the fact that ODFW wants to go to solely computerized licensing.
Yeah, I think
and we've got to look at them. Pardon?
Did we talk about this last time, or did we just talk about this another time?
I know we've talked about it, but I don't think we talked about it here.
Oh, let's talk about it now. We got the time.
Well, we have had several retailers reach out to us because, they have the terminals so that they can, give people, especially people coming from out of state, the license, or they can fill them out in person. If they fill them out in person, there is a stipulation that the retailers get $2 for each of the licenses that they sell. Sometimes they can write a license out in 5 to 7 minutes. Sometimes the terminal can take up to 20 minutes. Okay, so then we have the issue of, you have your license on your phone. Are you in an area where you can access that if all of a sudden the game warden is at your boat? Do you remember your password? Did I drop my phone in the in the river? And does the officer have cell service so that he can check on your license? So, there's a lot of different issues, and I just hit the ones that the most emotional ones that people are relaying to me right now.
Logical ones, really. Those are the issues that are going to be facing people.
Right. And they're saying that, there'll be a lineup of people trying to get a shellfish license. And if you have to wait up to 20 minutes to get a license, if you're from out of state, that is not going to make Oregon tourist friendly.
Yeah. Well, it's another one of those things that seemed like a good idea to somebody in a state agency in an office building in Salem who probably doesn't go fishing and hunting very much, who did not think through the realities of what it would mean on the ground.
Right.
And that's one of the problems that we have here in Oregon. We get a lot of these ideas from people who do not experience the areas in which they are trying to regulate.
Right.
And are just making things harder on people. We see the same thing with unemployment again.
I'm
guessing most of the people who have imposed the unemployment system, if I'm guessing they haven't probably ever been on unemployment, although they probably should be after all of this.
Family leave seems to be getting a little bit better. But, does this have to take this long to be able to sort this all out? How many people have suffered because they haven't been able to access that promised family leave, in a time when they're in need?
Yeah.
Because usually family need comes also with a family crisis. So, there's a lot to be said for the efficiency of our state agencies.
Right. Well, what else you got going on here? We've got it's summertime. It's parade season.
It's parade season, and the first one is this weekend with the June Dairy Parade. I'm really looking forward to that.
Right.
It's always, I think it's about my favorite parade. But then, we have Garibaldi, we have Warrenton, we have Platskanine, we have Vernonia, we have Banks, we have Cloverdale, we have Pacific City. It's a good time to welcome people to the area.
And a reminder for folks for whom Senator is not in your parade, especially around 4th of July, the district is huge.
I know. I can't get to them all.
Big. It is physically impossible to be in every single parade on 4th of July. On places like Clover's Day and Pacific and Vernonia Days, and in Rainier, and in some of these, and in the Dairy Parade, where they're on different days. You know, I know we always try to get you there. You always try.
I know.
Yeah. But you can't be at all of them.
Right. And I wish everybody well on that. Really.
Really, I know you wish you could be at all because you love these things.
I do. You know, there is a real joy in being able to throw candy at kids.
Yeah.
You know, say here and just throw them a handful of candy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Senator, anything else? Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I continue to work on my task forces. I continue to work on constituent issues. And one of the constituent issues right now that I am hearing a lot about is the USPS, United States Postal Service. People sending out their checks for their bills, especially people who are older and pay their bills that way, and they're not making it there. The checks aren't making it there, and so they're having a problem. And then there was, well, I can't even go into everything that has been happening, but there are some real challenges with the Postal Service. And we have reached out to our congressional leaders to see if we can't get some help on that.
Right. It never stops.
No, it doesn't.
All right, Senator. Well, as always, love having conversation with you. Love doing this every month. And we probably will not do this beforehand. Happy 4th of July to you.
Yes, happy 4th of July to you too. Are you going to be involved in any kind of a parade? Are the kids going to march in anything?
We're going to go to a parade. And then we're going to be like any good American and drink alcohol and play with explosives.
Yes. Hey, my granddaughter graduated from OSU.
I saw that. Gosh,
what a joy.
I feel
How is it that little bitty thing with the squeaky little voice made it all the way through college?
She's still little though.
Yes, she is. That was a joy.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations, all you graduates. We're getting to the end of the graduation season now, but congratulations, all you taking those next steps. I remember those days. They are further and further in the past.
Yes.
Every year. But congratulations, all you graduates.
Yes, I agree.
Yep. All right.
Well,
thank you very much, Senator. We'll catch you next time, and thank you very much, everybody, for watching.